for fiscal year 2018-19. No action was taken. At this time, please join us for our traditional moment of silence. Thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As it is customary, it is now time for one of our board members to read the vision statement. Tonight, our mission statement, or vision statement rather, will be read by Vice Chair Wilner.
All Jefferson County Public School students graduate prepared, empowered, and inspired to reach their full potential and contribute as thoughtful, responsible citizens of our diverse, shared world.
Our next item is recognitions and resolutions. Before I go into that, I do want to let everyone know that we do have 6 speakers that are going to be addressing this board regarding 9 agenda items, and no executive session will be needed this evening. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Terry Robinson to introduce our recognitions and resolutions. Ms. Robinson.
Thank you. Dr. Polio, Board Chair Chris Brady, and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This evening, we are presented with the honor of introducing and recognizing our distinguished new principals and principals with new school assignments. They are outstanding leaders in their profession who have met and completed all the requirements to serve in the important role of principal. Board Member Diane Porter and Assistant Superintendent Brad Weston, please come forward to congratulate the principals in District 1. Dr. Carla Colodi, Bick Elementary School. Letitia Young, Foster Traditional Academy. Desiree Bush, McFerrin Preparatory Academy. Erica Lawrence, Young Elementary School.
Very good at it.
Board Member Benjamin Gies, Assistant Superintendents Brad Weston and Dr. Glenn Beatty, please come forward to congratulate the principals in District 4. Todd Stockwell, Doss High School. Zachary Eccles, Schaffner Traditional Elementary School. Sean Russell, Watson Lane Elementary School. Tracy Durbin, Wilkerson Elementary School. Board Member Linda Duncan and Assistant Superintendent Brad Weston, please come forward to congratulate the principals in District 5. Brandy Corbin, Fairdale High School. Sarah Carmichael Miller, Frazier Elementary School. Erica Walker, Minor Lanes Elementary School. Board Chair Chris Brady and Assistant Superintendent Michelle Dillard, please come forward to congratulate the principals in District 7. Patrick Savori, Alex Kennedy Elementary School. Brooke Schilling, Jefferson Town Elementary School. Dr. Polio and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. At this time, our next item will be to, I'm sorry, before we move on, I need a vote to receive the recognitions. Is there a motion? Motion made by Member Porter, second made by Member Geese. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Now it's time for our recommendation for approval of the meeting agenda. Are there any amendments to the meeting agenda? Member Geese.
I move to hear from our public speakers on non-action items immediately following our superintendent's report.
All right. Is there a motion to amend the agenda? Motion made by vice. Okay. Motion made by member. Actually, did we say motion? No, we said there's. Okay. So motion made by Member Geese. I'm sorry. The second made by Vice Chair Wilner. All those in favor? Motion passes. Agenda is amended. I will now make another amendment, a motion to make another amendment. This will be to move to amend the agenda to add action item 7B, recommendation for approval of a contract between JCPS and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees Local 4011, as presented to the board this week. Is there a second? Second made by Member Kolb. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously, so that will be your second action item. Now I need a vote to approve the amended board agenda. Is there a motion? Motion made by Member Geese. Second, Member Kolb. All those in favor? Our agenda is now amended. Okay, now we're going to move on to our next item, which is recommendation to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a motion? Motion made by Member Porter. Second made by Member Duncan. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Now we're on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Polio?
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to all in attendance tonight, board members. First of all, as I will on every report, I want to reinforce our three main focus areas for the year that we believe support Vision 2020. We continue to work on every single day and continue to improve in these areas. As I said in our administrator kickoff, it is critical that we improve on them every single day throughout the course of the entire year to lay the foundation for Vision 2020. Once again, those three priorities, focus areas, improving culture and climate in every single one of our schools, and also in all of our central office facilities, increasing student learning, every single one of our schools, in two areas, a standards-based approach and through deeper learning, and finally improving organizational coherence. You will hear factors that involve all three of those tonight on our work that we will do this evening. I do want to highlight briefly the administrator kickoff that we had on Wednesday. I believe we had nearly 1,000 people at our administrator kickoff. We appreciate board members that attended. Thank you for your commitment to doing that. I know it's a balance, having jobs and families and all that you do to make sure that you support our schools and administrators for very little, if any, pay. So thank you for your support on that. I do feel that our administrators left the administrative kickoff with an energy and an excitement for this year that we haven't seen in the past. So I was very honored to be a part of that and to see us walk away with the energy that we had. For those of you that saw it, and I've heard this many times since then, we saw a video that reiterated the philosophy of I love my job, I'm really, really good at it, and I'm going to save your son. I've heard that many times over and over again, and I think that is critical for every administrator, not only every administrator, it starts with us, but also that every employee in our district come to work every day with that philosophy. And so a message of professionalism in all of our administrators, but most importantly, bringing a passion and energy to work for 175 school days is what our kids deserve. Our children deserve that, and no less. So very enthused and excited about the passion that our administrators are bringing. Now it will be incumbent on us to make sure it's consistent every single day as we move forward. We will continue that message of passion, and I love my job, and I'm really, really good at it. I'm here to save your child every single day of this year. Also very positive, I wanted to highlight our board work session on budget priorities this evening. I think it brings coherence as we move forward on the budget process, so that in Vision 2020, we highlight those priorities that are going to move our district forward, but also we're going to make sure that we fund those priorities and work together on that. So I thought it was an excellent beginning to the process that we will have throughout the upcoming months for the 18-19 budget. Action item this evening will be our internal audit report. One thing I would like to highlight about our internal audit report, we have to bring coherence to the process of audits. So as Dean Dorton will bring tonight, one of the things that they do, they identify the risks that we have, and then also is the group that audits. Internally, we have to be the ones that start identifying the risks that we have as a cabinet, and through our internal risk committee that we have to do that so that we are the ones that identify risks, and then we have our internal audit people follow up with the auditing of that and bring a report back to us. I think it's incumbent on us. You'll hear tonight some of that report that they'll be doing, but we'll be working closely with them and our committee to make sure that happens. First day of school report tonight. It's been a lot of hard work to get ready for that first day of school. It is so critical that we provide safe transportation, but most importantly, instruction and a warm, welcoming climate in our school when students arrive. I want to reiterate, as I've said, day one is very important, but day 2 through 175 are just as important, that we do that every single day of the year. Also wanted to highlight dual credit that will be on our agenda for this evening, and some funding for dual credit. It is critical that all of our high schools move to a dual credit system that is active and vibrant in their schools. We're going to align some of our systems here at the district so that every single school has opportunity for dual credit, not just a few schools. So we're going to have those systems in place, and a lot of it's going to be working within our Talent Academy. Finally, a couple updates. I wanted to update progress on Males of Color Academy. It's been about 6 weeks since I think we voted to approve that. So we are currently in the process of posting the principal for that academy. So that will be done this week. We believe by September 1st, we would like to propose a name to the academy, so to give that an official name. By September 7th, we will be closing the position of the principal, so it will be right around that time. 1 month from today, we will close that position. Our goal by September 21st is to name a principal. So we hope to have a principal in place by September 21st. And finally, our deadline, but we would like to be before this, is October 28th, is to bring you a facility that we would like to have the program in, that we will ask for your approval at that time for that facility prior to the showcase. Along with that will be decisions about budget, student assignment, all the things that go with it that we plan on having in place. We want an administrative team in place by January 1st and ready to go. So we're excited about the progress. We continue to work. We will bring a plan to the community as we move forward on that. Finally, I'd like to update the board on a plan we are currently working on. Our Division of Equity and Poverty, led by Dr. Marshall, is exploring and engaging in having a satellite JCPS central office in West Louisville. So we want to provide opportunities for our families to engage and make it much easier for our families to engage in the services that we provide here at the central office, which for many folks can be very difficult to get to. So we want to provide that opportunities for families. We're looking for a facility. We also want to increase some opportunities at that facility for parents to engage in their students' education. Currently evaluating space and cost for that. So each of the offices that provide services to students and parents will have a representative down there. Our goal is to open up that satellite office by October 1st. So we will continue to update you on that, but we're excited as one of our goals is to continue to increase parental engagement. So thank you for that time, and we'll continue to work on improving that culture and climate, increasing student learning, and improving organizational coherence every day.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. At this time, as our amended agenda has, agenda has been amended, it's, yeah,
Could I just
Vice
ask
Chair Wilmer?
a question
Sure.
on the report? Sorry.
That's all right.
You mentioned a name for the academy, and I know I've had several emails from folks curious about the name, and we have a process for how a school gets named. Is it possible to make that public on the website, or to let people know what that policy is and what the process is for how a school is named, so that the public can have access to that information?
Sure. There is, as this is a program and not a school, there was some discussion about whether that is a board decision or not, but we felt that it was appropriate in this case to bring that decision to you for approval. So we will be doing that in one of the subsequent board meetings, but yes, we can make that process on our website.
All right. Thank you. Any further discussion? Member Porter.
Dr. Polio, thank you for the update about the Academy program. There were some people tonight thinking that we were going to talk about the name. So if you're here for that reason, thank you for being here, and stay tuned. Keep coming with us and joining in those dates that you gave out. I think it's important that we try to put those dates out, the deadlines that you hope to have everything available, so our community will actually know what our plan is. So thank you for
Sure.
making those available to us tonight.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. In probably 2 board meetings, we will bring a name to you, a recommended name.
Further discussion? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Polio. Again, as I said, our agenda has been amended to bring our public speakers up at this time. So our first speaker will be Deshaun Johnson regarding the First Tee program within JCPS. Mr. Johnson. As you're coming up here, let me read the policy here. In accordance with Board Policy 01.421, the board expects that persons who have signed up to address the board will limit their remarks to the subject that they listed at the time they signed up, that their presentation will not include any defamatory or abusive remarks about the subject, and that they will present their remarks in a manner that is consistent with the orderly conduct by the board of its business. Informational handouts may be given to the board secretary for distribution in accordance with policy. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the board. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once. You will then have 30 seconds to finish your statement. At the end of 3 minutes, the bell will sound twice, indicating that your time is up. The superintendent will look into the speaker's issues and, if necessary, represent the board in follow-up recommendation to the board. In accordance with Board Policy 01.421, the board reserves the right to limit, extend, or terminate any speaker's presentation if the speaker's remarks are not consistent with the requirements of the board policy. So just want to make sure everyone is aware of our policy. So Mr. Johnson, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Deshaun Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of the First Tee of Louisville. The First Tee of Louisville became an official chapter of the National First Tee organization in February of 2005. As part of this organization, we're leading youth development program that uses golf as a vehicle to help teach youth the importance of life skills. We're not a golf program. We are a youth development program. The First Tee makes that clear with the motto, good golfers, better people. Back to the program. The teaching of the First Tee life skill curriculum is a top priority. We help youth at all ages understand the focus of the 9 core values: honesty, responsibility, integrity, respect, judgment, courtesy, perseverance, confidence, sportsmanship. We believe children who exhibit these values will be tomorrow's successful leaders. The First Tee life skills experience gives particular to the ability to face challenges at home, school, and at play in a constructive manner. The program's success rate thus far is immeasurable. It's possible because of the enormous support of partners like the Moore Foundation, Cozair Charities, Humana, and the Louisville Urban League. This year, we're trying to do much, much more. We want to make sure all children within the proximity of Metro Louisville are given the opportunity to become introduced to the game of golf and learn important life skill applications with our National School Program, NSP. The NSP introduced elementary school students to the game of golf, the 9 core values, the First Tee 9 healthy habits during physical education classes. The program creates an environment where young people experience lifelong sport of golf while learning basic motor skills, inherent values of the game. Physical educators receive professional development training and provide age-appropriate curriculum and equipment for effective implementation of the NSP. The First Tee National School Program, launched in 2004, was developed by the First Tee with leading experts in physical education and positive youth development through sports. It's aligned with meets the national standards developed by the Society of Health and Physical Educators. The National School Program has been introduced to more than 8,000 elementary schools and 1,200 school districts throughout the United States. The National School Program, NSP, was launched in 2014 with 2 elementary schools. We currently have 7 JCPS elementary schools that are certified NSP schools, and we'll be adding 2 more in the fall of 2017. Our ultimate goal is to provide all NSP to Jefferson County Public Elementary Schools. Over the last 5 years, our school outreach has visited 20 to 25 JCPS schools each year, reaching over 10,000 students per year. We have also partnered with 8 community and schools with our DRIVE program, Developing Rewarding Inspiring Values for Everyone, which targets middle-aged school students with youth after-school program. I would like to recognize some of the supporters here this evening: Tony Powell, Senior Outreach Director, National First Tee Office, St. Augustine, Florida, the Moore Foundation, our NSP physical education teachers, and the First Tee board members. We're asking the support of the Jefferson County Board to eventually add the First Tee National School Program to all Jefferson County elementary schools. Thank you for your time and your support.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Our next speaker is Calvin Ramirez regarding music and art education. And the next person after that will be Alexandria Kennard, also regarding music and art education.
Hello and good evening. My name is Calvin Ramirez, and I am a rising sophomore at DuPont Manual High School in the Youth Performing Arts Magnet. I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to come out here and share my love for the arts with all of you tonight. The arts programs here in Jefferson County really are beneficiary for the kids that participate in them. They help them even academically by boosting self-confidence. Through your support, I have been able to participate in Kentucky Opera, Actors Theater of Louisville, and even on a national children's television show. Thank you again for your continued support. Now I will perform Amarili.
Amarili mia bella, non credio del mio cor, dolce desio, tesser tu, l'amor mio, credilo pur, e se di morta sale, dubidar non di vale, aprimi il petto e vedrai scritto in cuore Amarili, 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 il mio amore. Credilo pur, e se di morta sale, dubidar non di vale, aprimi il petto e vedrai scritto in cuore Amarili, 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 il mio amore. Amarili, il mio amore.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Our next speaker is Alexandria Kennard, also on the same subject regarding music and art education. After, is Ms. Kennard here? Ms. Kennard? Ms. Kennard. Okay, so we're moving on to our next speaker, which will be Gracie Lewis regarding males of color. Ms. Lewis? After Ms. Lewis will be Ruben Pulliam regarding the W.E.B. Du Bois School for Males of Color. Thank you for being here, Ms. Lewis. The floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Gracie Lewis, and I'm a member of the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, and also a board member of the U of L Signature Partnership Program. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you regarding the naming of the Males of Color Academy. I believe that in order to create a generation of males of color who is equipped for the global economy, the name should be changed to the Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois Academy. Dr. Du Bois was a civil rights activist, educator, and journalist. He became the first African American to earn a PhD from Harvard University. Dr. Du Bois was also the co-founder of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in 1909. Du Bois published his first case study of an African American community entitled The Philadelphia Negro, a social study, in 1899. In the study, he coined the phrase the talented 10th, a term that describes the likelihood of 10 black men becoming leaders of their race. I believe that with this academy, there is a strong possibility that one of these students could become a talented 10th that could provide the leadership and vision to transform our nation. I also strongly believe that this academy should be located somewhere in West Louisville where the suspension and dropout rate is the greatest. And I would like to conclude my presentation with a thought that was put forth by Dr. Blaine, the late Dr. Blaine Hudson. He stated, he said, those who do not know themselves cannot value themselves, and those who are not known by others cannot be valued by others. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Ruben Pulliam. After Mr. Pulliam will be Barbara Boyd, who will be our final speaker. And Mr. Pulliam left? Okay. Okay. So, Ms. Boyd, you're up, and you'll be our final speaker this evening. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Polio and board members. I want to talk briefly about two things. One is the marquee that was out front, the LCD electric marquee that would give the events that happen, events and whatever's going on with the district. It's been replaced by a sign that says nothing. And I'd like to recommend that the LCD marquee be returned and the current JCPS sign be removed. The previous marquee was an effective communication to alert motorists passing by this location of events and occurrences happening in the JCPS district. The sign out there now gives nothing other than location. So please consider putting that LCD lighted marquee back. The clock was also effective. You knew how many days to the beginning of the school year. You don't have any of that now, so it's almost like the district's code. You don't want to communicate. The other thing that I wanted to bring before you is the possibility of maybe not having school on the 21st for the solar eclipse. I know that the Lexington School District is closed. I know children will be excused if they so wish to go, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. People travel all over the world to witness this. Is everybody going to go? No. But what about teachers? I've had conversations with teachers. I'm a retired teacher, And I didn't really say that, you know, who I am. But I chair the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. And I've had conversations with teachers that wouldn't mind going. So it's an education process. You want the, you know, you're allowing the kids to be excused. What about teachers? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. As is our custom, our superintendent will get back to you on your concerns. All right. That concludes our speakers for this evening. Our next item is our agenda item, of which we have two. Our first item will be the recommendation for approval of internal audit risk-based plan for 2017-18. There are no speakers regarding this item. Dr. Polio, would you like to introduce this item?
Sure. As I said in our superintendent report, the importance of having effective internal audits. I know that Jim Tenza will update a little bit more about history, but in 2015, this group was brought on to provide identifying risk and auditing several things, which he will report on tonight and give you that report. As I said before, I think it's going to be incumbent on us to take over the identification of risk side of it, and then follow up and make sure our internal audits are the ones that gives us that report. So without further ado, I'll bring up Jim Tenza to give his report on how Dean Dorton handles that.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. All right. Yeah, we've submitted our plan for the upcoming year, and in accordance with the internal audit charter, the board's required to approve that plan, and it's really internal audit reports directly to the board. That it is a risk-based audit plan, and we came up with the audit plan without doing a full-blown risk assessment. We basically took prior year risk assessment, did an update of it, and as Dr. Polio said, we've been encouraging management to take on the role of the risk identification and how they're mitigating those risks, and then we would then take that to develop our plan. So it's kind of in process right now, and so we didn't think it was efficient or effective to do a full-blown risk assessment at this time because management's starting to take over that role. And I do want to point out a few things about the plan, and then I'll take any questions you may have. Some of the bigger changes, we did add audits of credit cards and the human resource department based on our risk assessment. We think those are areas that we need to look into this year, so we have added those to the internal audit plan this year. We have also significantly expanded our procedures for Red Book compliance. In the prior years, we would try to go to a bunch of schools and do some limited procedures. We're trying to be a little bit more targeted this year. So we're in the process of doing kind of a risk assessment of the schools, and then we're going to go in and do a more in-depth audit at those schools. So it'll be less schools, but more auditing. And then on the student behavioral side, as you know, we've been focused on that over the last couple of years. And so this year, we're going to be looking at the bus referral process and reporting of that. And then I do want to point out that we are not doing any audits of procurement, accounts payable, or lunchroom audits. Those are areas we've done audits in the past year and had no findings of any significance. And we did budget for 900 hours to deal with items that come in through the hotline, as well as other special requests and special investigations. We're anticipating with the KDE management audit that they may have some findings that we may want to address, so we want to leave a little bit of flexibility to potentially address those. And then, of course, during the year, we will give you an update on the plan, and we will report if there's any significant changes in the plan. We would seek your approval at that time. So I'll stop there and be glad to answer any questions you have about the plan.
Do any board members have any questions? Member Duncan.
I had a question about the hours. You said, isn't this a 1,200-hour plan? And you just, did I hear you wrong when you said you were 900 hours on the hotline?
what we've done is we've come up with a plan for the whole entire internal audit department. So the internal audit department's made up of 3 JCPS employees and Dean Dorton. So Dean Dorton, we have 1,200 hours of Dean Dorton time, plus we have 3 full-time people. So the 900 hours for special investigations, some of those will be handled by JCPS employees.
Okay.
So the
Very good, understand.
Does that make sense?
Yes, and I also want to ask you, you know, we talked about developing a policy to have our administrators go through risk management training once a year, I think. Has anybody approached you, or has there been any progress on creating that policy?
I have not been involved in that. I know the Finance Advisory Committee, they have a risk subcommittee that's working on that, and I will be attending the next meeting, so I'm not sure of the exact progress on that at this point.
All right, let me check with Dr. Polio. Is somebody pursuing that creation of that policy for administrators to go through training, annual training on risk management?
I'll have to check on that, Ms. Duncan.
All righty.
I said I'll have to check on that because I'm not familiar with that, but I wasn't familiar with a training for risk, but I will check into that.
I think during one of their reports, at the end of that, we talked about checking with maybe other districts to see what their policy is on that kind of training. But it would be something that we would, I think, benefit from if our administrators could go through that annually.
We do have an internal risk committee that Eddie Munns and I have brought together several of the cabinet members and other cost center heads to kind of talk with them about some of the risk that they envision in their particular division and what they see. In addition, we are working with Georgia Hampton in that she has some video training that we're all required to do regarding harassment, and so we want to kind of attach to that a method where we can ensure that everyone goes through this training. So we are working on it. The policy itself, no, we have not dealt with a policy. We're kind of getting together to see what we need to do first before we look at the policy.
Okay, but we will likely expect a policy to come from this. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Further questions? Member Horn?
I'm really excited about the work of our Finance, Risk, and Audit Advisory Committee, because I think that we're hopefully gathering a few folks with some skill sets that are auditors now that can like volunteer in that capacity, so that while you're doing the work of the audit, they can begin to try to explore various risks to put together such a recommendation. I don't know that we would be developing a policy, but we might be developing some recommendations. But how is that, like, from your perspective, will that assist you in a sense, like maybe in a year time?
Yep.
You know, can you talk a little bit about like the work that could support what you're doing?
Right. Yeah, ideally, you know, management with the help of the Finance Advisory Committee would be doing a comprehensive risk assessment coming up. These are what we think are the most significant risks that may cause us not to meet our goals and objectives as a district. And then from those risks, management would then say, this is how we're mitigating those risks. And then internal audit obviously then would come in and say, okay, you know, are those mitigation plans working? The policies you put in, the controls you put in, are those working appropriately? And we would use that to develop our plan. You know, we would still probably be more focused on more financial and potential fraud risks, but that would be, you know, that's best practice of how it should work. And so I think we're getting there. It is a big undertaking. Obviously, it's a big district with a lot of risks, and you talk to a lot of different people. They all may have different ideas of what the most significant risks are. So it is a process that will take some time, but that's the way, hopefully, it will work here in the near future.
The only thing that I think the committee, the subcommittee within our finance group needs is the ability to communicate like directly, like have some kind of direction from you, Dr. Polio, to be able to have be authorized to begin those relationships internally to help create the CRA.
Yes, it's definitely going to take the committee, the cooperation of everybody here to ensure that that happens, and that we identify risks before they become identified by an outside entity, which has happened in the past. And so that's our goal here, that we don't repeat some of those things that have happened. And I think we've had a lot of improvement in those areas. But clearly, we're going to have to, when the state audit results come to us, the report, we're going to have to use this process as a way too. But future goal will be to identify that before they happen and work with that committee.
Vice Chair Wellner?
This is really for you as well, Dr. Polio. So first of all, thank you for taking up that recommendation that we do identify our own risk. That's been a recommendation for some time, so I appreciate your following up on that. The last time Mr. Tenza sat in front of us, I think it was the last time, he gave us a benchmarking where what we're spending, our capacity for internal audit was benchmarked against a whole bunch of other large districts. We were pretty close to the bottom in terms of how we're resourcing the internal audit function. So I wanted to, I guess, bring that to your awareness, that document, and that study has been done, that data's been available. I'm sure Cordelia has access to that. So as we think about budget priorities, do we need to be investing a little more in the internal audit function?
Thank you. I mean, I think it is critical that we do. One of the most critical things, I think, is that we use this process to ensure that systems are aligned across all 155 schools. So when we try to compare data in various ways amongst schools, we have to ensure that it's measuring all the same thing. So yeah, I think I can't say I have an answer to that right now, but I think that's an important conversation we'll have to make sure that's happening.
Further questions regarding this item? I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Tenza.
Thank you.
Dr. Polio. I need a vote to approve the internal risk or audit risk-based plan for 2017-18. Motion made by Member Duncan, second by Member Horn. All those in favor? Motion passes. Now it's time to come to our second action item. This is the item that was amended earlier in the meeting. This item is a recommendation for approval of a contract between JCPS and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 4011, also known as ASME. There's really no discussion on this item. Is there a motion to approve this? Or is there did anyone have any discussion items or discussion points? Okay, so motion to approve. Motion's made by Member Kolb, second by Member Vice Chair Wilner. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Now we are on to informational items. The next item, or first item and only item on our informational items, is a report on opening day preparations for the 2017-18 school year. So I'm turning it over to Dr. Polio to introduce this item.
Obviously, as we all know, how important the first day of school is and what all goes into that and the intensity with that. We have had a team, and Mike Razor will talk a little bit more about that, but we've had a team that's been working on that weekly for about the past 6 to 8 weeks, since about the 1st of July, I think. So about 6 weeks they've been working on that. I had the opportunity, unfortunately, I came right at the end of the meeting on Monday, but got into the war room where they work, and that operation is a team effort. They work extremely hard. They will be in that room from about 5 a.m. till the last student gets in the house next Wednesday. So I want to commend them, led by Dr. Razor, for their work to make sure that that first day goes very well. And I'm going to bring up Dr. Razor so he can update a little bit on that progress.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Polio, members of the board. This is about the 6th time by my count that I've given this presentation, and I don't want to minimize the criticality of it and the critical nature of the first day of school. Just because we do this every year doesn't mean it's the same exercise twice. And to Dr. Polio's point, since about July 1st, we have really ramped this up into a weekly meeting, but the work of the First Day Task Force is a year-round work. From literally about the first week of September last year, we started deconstructing the first day of school. And if you remember last year, the first day of school was a little interesting when I-71 shut down for several hours. And our ability to react and adapt to that situation, I think, really is a credit to the teamwork that we have and all the pre-work that goes into this. So when we look at the back to school key areas of focus, we're really looking at 5 things. The first thing is this literally continual preparation for the first day of school. Because again, to Dr. Polio's point as well, the first day of school is important, but every other day is as well. But this really sets the tone. What we're doing in preparation is we're making sure that schools have what they need. We're making sure that parents and families know when to enroll, where to enroll, how that process works. And that ties right into communication and clarity. We take out the mobile command center bus and turn it into the mobile enrollment bus, and go into neighborhoods where we historically have lower proactive enrollment and try to encourage that. Then really over about the last 6 years, we have continued to simplify the process of getting kids to school and getting them home from school, and just spend an extreme amount of time with our schools, with the leaders of the schools, with a lot of the office staff, and making sure that everyone understands. And we do all that so the first day of school, I was joking with Dr. Polio yesterday, and I said, I've got great news. 154 out of 155 schools are ready to go for the first day. Is that okay? And we've got to make sure that we have school in every school the first day of school. And we've got to make sure that every kid gets home from the first day of school in an efficient manner. So all the things we do on the front end allow us to have the contingency plans and the execution of the first day. In our command center right now, we have about 8 pieces of chart paper up for, let's say the roughly 40 incidents we had the first day of school. Students showing up at the wrong school. We have kindergartners every year who show up with not a stitch of identification on them, and mom's name is mom and dad's name is dad. And where are you going today? School. So all that pre-planning that we have allows us to spend that from 5 a.m. to the last kid gets home figuring out those mysteries and problems. So, I can't say enough about the team that I have assembled around me for the first day of school. It literally is every department and division within JCPS. A lot of credit goes to Amy Dennis, who even in retirement has came back and helped us with the first day of school. I've sort of brought her on as our first day expert. We use systems thinking, and from that systems thinking, though, again, we just keep trying to drive simplicity and not complicate things. Cross-function of this department is amazing. I think the other thing now is over 5 or 6 years, everybody working together, we all start to understand what each other's roles are, and we trust the people who work with us, and we trust that they're going to get done what they say they are. Like I said, a lot of clarity, a lot of proactivity allows us to execute, but the most important 2 things that we have because of that are the agility that we're able to have on the first day of school to make sure that we can take care of any little snafus that pop up. And then finally, that continuous improvement mindset that we have, that every year we dissect what we've done the year before and make sure that we can learn anything from that and fix that for the next year. A big lesson learned last year was make sure that we have plenty of water on hand, and also that we have somebody who's completely monitoring the traffic. Because a great example of what happened last year, I-71 shut down. Anybody who travels I-71 every day, that's an everyday occurrence. Well, 15 minutes later, I-71 shut down. A half hour later, I-71 shut down. By the time that raised any red flags, we'd had kids, including my own son, on the bus for an hour sitting on I-71. Had we had one person just monitoring the traffic, we would have sent the water a lot earlier. However, we did also get to shut the interstate down and drive buses down it the wrong way, which was really kind of cool. But I'm happy to answer any questions you all have. I'm confident we're going to have a great first day of school and that we're going to be able to handle whatever comes our way, but it's not going to be done by one person. It's going to be done at 155 different schools and by lots of great individuals.
Any questions about this? Member Duncan.
Just a couple of questions. Are there any new directions to car riders this year to families that are driving their kids to school? Is there anything new or any change there?
There are not, unless it was an individual school's decision.
Okay, no rules or anything out there?
We would ask people, you hear this on the radio all the time, if you're sitting in the car rider line and you're sitting more than 10 seconds, we do try to abide by a no idle zone, so turn off your car.
Okay, and I had my grandson's bus stop last year was a certain spot, and this year we found out it's about 3 miles away. So the system is not perfect, and we have to pursue answers to questions and things like everybody else.
And Randy Franz, if you're watching, Miss Duncan's grandson's bus stop.
Member Duncan, anything else? Okay. Member Horn.
That has happened, like different things happen. So where do people call? Who do they call? And what should they do? We had one, like the bus route was backward instead of, like, it was just backward.
You can always call 313-HELP. That's our year-round call-in number. Starting on Monday, we also have 485-RIDE that is specifically just for transportation issues. And as Dr. Polio alluded to, we have a command center set up for the first day of school where anything that is a more complex problem, myself, Amy Dennis, Tiffany Armour, and then other members of my staff are in there problem solving for people all day long.
All right. Any further questions? Member Porter.
Just want to say thank you early on, because it is critical. You knew I had to say that. The team does a great job, and it is not the work of one person, it's the work of the team. So because of good teamwork and clear directions and leadership, this has, we don't have problems. There was a year with problems when I first came to the board. And one of the things that I think that we have done a great job on is having our interpreters in the school, because we serve an international population. And for the children that can say, Mom, Dad, school, to say that in multiple languages, we need to be able to understand exactly what they're saying so that we can take care of their needs. And I know, because I've been in the districts, my schools in my district on the first day, and you all are doing a phenomenal job with that. So I want to say thank you to everyone. But how we start the year matters a lot, and all the days matter, but the first day it's a big deal. So thank you, because we are, I'm not jinxing anything, but thank you because of whatever you need to do. But I want to say thank you to everybody, because sometimes we talk over people and around people, and this is truly a team effort, so thank you.
It is. I should have alluded to that even more, because it's an hands on deck type of thing. We have many people who work in central office that are former school administrators or former school secretaries, and on the first days of school, those people leave the Van Hoos building, leave Lamb, leave CB Young, and go out into the schools, because year over year, we're able to trend where there potentially could be issues in schools, where students may show up unenrolled, or where we have high concentrations of students who may not speak English. And to have those staff there that deal with that year in, year out, that's just invaluable.
Anyone else? Got a couple of comments. First of all, and Dr. Polo, you may want to speak to this, but you mentioned that the 485 ride line was going to be operational on Monday. In years past, it's been on Sunday. So just if you want to address that issue.
Sunday, we received literally zero traffic.
Okay.
Many times when the superintendent was talking on the phone with somebody, it was somebody in the building calling them, so it looked like the superintendent was on the phone with someone.
Okay.
So
I was
Monday
taking those calls too, so all right. I
It
didn't
was
realize that.
very, very, very minimal traffic on those days, and we find that the traffic on Monday kicks up quite a bit.
Okay, all right. So, and I assume communications will also post that out, that unless you want to come forward and discuss this right now, since we have a captive audience,
Yes,
make sure that we
will.
also communicate that out to the public as well.
We will be sending that out on Monday morning, first thing at 6 a.m., so that parents have it early in the morning. And I had Terry Robinson pull the numbers when we decided on the Sunday whether or not, and we had 10 parent calls on that Sunday. So we just thought as a resource it would be better. It seems most folks, it's kind of that Monday they get back into work and they start thinking about, oh, I need to make this phone call. So we just didn't feel like having that Sunday crew in there was worth it for 10 calls. But the bus finder is up and active now, so people can access that now, and they can always call 313-HELP before Monday if they have a transportation question.
Okay, so a couple of things. One, if you would just also, if communications can put that out through social media before Monday. So that way people on the weekends, if they have time to look through Facebook or Twitter or whatever, then parents will be able to see that, and then we can tweet that out or post that out multiple times. I think that's, more
Yes, sir,
times is better than just one or two. So that would be helpful. And I'm sorry, what was that number again? 3 what?
313-HELP.
I'm sorry, what was that?
313-HELP.
I'm sorry, what was that one more time?
3.
Oh, that's very
Yeah.
critical. It's extremely critical.
485 ride.
And 313-HELP. So it seems like I know that is our single point of contact within the district. I know some people recently are saying, I wasn't aware of that. So just want to make sure that we're pushing that message, 313-HELP. Also, and this is a little bit of a curveball, so I apologize, but this is something that occurred to me when we had some of our speakers talking about the eclipse. I know we have some field trips that are going to be going down to Hopkinsville area, to the area of totality. And there's obviously some travel advisories that have been put out, lots of travel down to the path of totality. Is there, or are we going to communicate, or is there some type of way, and you don't have to have an answer now, you can always get back, or at least just to be thinking about it, of if we have, students that are stranded on, Western Kentucky Parkway, which obviously we're not going to be able to shut that down and run buses down, but is there some way we have a communication plan, or at least have an idea of, to track those kids if there is an issue with traffic?
Yeah, that's a good one. We hadn't talked on that one yet, so that's,
sorry to throw the curveball.
That's one we'll have to address. I mean, one thing we are doing with that is all of our achievement area superintendents are directly working with their principals to make sure that a plan is in place at every school, ensuring that teachers and principals know exactly who's going to be involved in this, what classes, what parent permission forms are in place, what safety procedures are in place in order to do any type of activity with this. And then we will add in travel concerns when it comes to field trips.
Okay.
And just to piggyback on that, probably not to the scale of this, but more often than you would think, we do have field trips stranded in places where on a private carrier buses broke down, or one of ours, and so we have some contingencies. But obviously if we have multiples, we'll have to ramp up the contingency in that case.
Just want to be ahead of the curve if a curve actually occurs. So thank you. Okay, no other questions regarding this item? All right, well, thank you very much. I need a vote to receive the report on opening day preparations for 2017-2018 school year. Motion made by Member Porter, second by Member Horn. All those in favor, motion passes. Now we are on to our consent calendar. Again, there are no speakers regarding the consent calendar. Are there any items that board members wish to pull? I want to tell you that right now we have items I, S, and R. Is there any other items? Member Geese?
Yes, under acceptance of donations, grants, and funding, I would like for us to pull Item 2, acceptance of funding for the dual credit scholarship program.
You said item 2, is that M2 or, I'm sorry, which one? M2? L2, thank you.
I'm in
Okay,
numeral
I'm sorry, I was
9,
looking on a different
L2.
page. All right, L2. Is there another item? Member Duncan?
Item Q, I just have one more question on item Q.
Item Q, okay. Any other items? All right. Is there a vote to approve the consent agenda minus items I, R, S, L.2, and Q? Motion made by Member Kolb, second made by Member or Vice Chair Wilner. All those in favor? Motion passes. The consent calendar minus those items have been approved. Now what I'd like to do is open up discussion regarding, we'll say item I first. Item I, which is recommendation for approval of professional service contracts of $5,000 or more. Member Kolb, I believe you had a question about this.
I did, yeah. Now that the fiscal new year is reset and we're approving these for the coming school year, I've talked to some folks before about the issues that research has pointed out with school resource officers, and I think our schools need to be safe and secure and maybe even have security personnel, but a lot of research I've seen indicates that school resource officers contribute to the school to prison pipeline effect for young men of color in particular, but more groups than that. So I don't know if how the rest of you feel, but I'd like to move that we remove items 3 and 4 from the professional services contract of $5,000 or more, which are $15,000 each from the J-Town Police Department.
Okay, can you please put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I move that we remove items 3 and 4 from the professional services contracts of $5,000 or more.
Is there a second? Second made by Member Vice Chair Wilner. All those in favor? Oh, yes, we can, certainly. Yes, Dr. Polio?
Well, I believe many times that school resource officers, when done effectively, can be effective. When ineffective, lead to that also. So I've worked in schools with a school resource officer and without them, and I think when the officer is effective, especially with relationships with students. I've specifically worked with the Jeffersontown Police Department, and I think when it is done well, they are an excellent learning tool for our students. Obviously provide safety. I think we have to work with our SROs to obviously minimize school arrests. I don't think that's what anybody wants. And so track that and make sure that that's not happening. But I understand the concern, I really do, but I do believe when we, just like teachers, security, anyone else in a school, when we have positive working relationships with them, that they become effective.
Member Duncan, and then Vice Chair Wilner.
Well, I'd just like to comment. I think I've expressed this before. As an assistant principal, I was having to do things in school that I'm a trained teacher, I'm a trained assistant principal, I'm not a trained law enforcement person, and when you have to take guns out of backpacks and lockers, and you have to deal with drugs and overdoses, and you have to deal with vicious assaults, things beyond a normal minor kind of injury, I think at that point you realize you need a law enforcement person there with you, and so I can't imagine. I did that job for 10 years without a resource officer. I retired in 2004, and the resource officers came in 2004, just as I retired. And I had prayed for resource officers, I guarantee you, to be there with us, because we did have some very dangerous situations sometimes that we had to deal with, some legal situations that we had to deal with, and we wanted them dealt with absolutely correctly. And to have had law enforcement with us would have been a huge
help.
Vice Chair Wellner.
I want to echo Dr. Kolb and say the safety of our students and our staff, that's absolutely primary. So as we were talking earlier about identifying risks, well, I'm going to back up a little bit. This was an issue, I've brought up the SRO issue in the past, a couple times over the past 2.5 years since I've been on the board. And I don't know if this is currently the case, but the first time I asked for some information about it, Dr. Polio, you mentioned the training, and it seemed like the training was really uneven, that there were different departments were doing different kinds of training, different schools were doing different kind of training. And so that maybe has been corrected, but I wonder if that's one of the areas of risk that we want to identify, because I absolutely agree with Ms. Duncan that we need to have people there who can handle difficult situations, make sure our school personnel and the students are safe. At the same time, nationally, the data shows that more kids wind up in the criminal justice system, when in the past it would have been dealt with, whatever it was, would have been dealt with as a school discipline issue. So I think for us to be able to track that and have some information about how many of our students are winding up in the criminal justice system and what really could have been a simple school discipline issue, that seems like an area of risk for our students. And as you say, particularly for our males of color and increasingly across the country for African American girls, that more and more are winding up in the criminal justice system instead of being behaviors being dealt with internally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we need to make sure that arrests are not happening for school misbehaviors. I still will say that effective SROs become more about resources to families. We connect them to parents. They assist us with things like missing children that happen on a regular basis. They advise families, they teach, they become a part of the instructional process for students. The effective ones are in the hallways and know the kids' names and call them by names and talk to them. Kids come to them when there might be a problem in their neighborhood, and I think it can teach very positive relationships both ways between our students and police officers. But having said that, it requires, so I've worked with effective and ineffective just like any other role group that we have. So it is going to be incumbent on us that we make sure, although we're dealing with 3 or 4 departments at least, I think, LMPD, Sheriff's, J-Town, St. Matthews. So it's difficult many times to do that, but I think Dr. Zeitz has been working on training with them and having meetings, and that we systemize that any type of arrest should be the absolute last thing that does not cross over into school discipline.
Member Geese, then Member Porter, then Member Horn.
I'd like to echo those same sentiments. I've spoken on this issue to a number of District 4 administrators, and they seem to have a very similar opinion to Dr. Polio, in that some are effective, some are ineffective. I think that this question poses a good opportunity for us to analyze that data. I do think it would be too much of a knee-jerk reaction to strip funding or to strip an RSO out of a school at this particular moment without a full board understanding of that data, where that data comes from, so on and so forth. I think a better compromise to this issue would be to realize where our SROs are potentially going wrong, and realize how we can offer effective training and support to ensure that they are, in fact, a benefit to the school rather than something that's causing more trouble.
Member Porter?
I support what Dr. Kolb has said, in that it gives an opportunity to perhaps arrest a student, but maybe not, because I have seen SROs that are like a part of the staff, part of the family, who embrace the students and are a positive role model for our students. I guess my concern this evening, X number of days before the opening of school, is that this school has made the determination that they need this, and I would ask that the administration, Dr. Polio, you and your staff, to look at the entire situation and get back to us. I think that if we start taking things away from schools when they come to the board, we're leaving them with nothing perhaps, and that makes me a little bit uncomfortable, having been a principal myself. So, and we don't have a plan B necessarily. I do support what Dr. Cope is saying with the research, but in the meantime, we are 8 days away from opening school, and I don't feel comfortable doing that to a school, because the school has made that decision. But I would ask for additional information, and I would also ask about the training of these officers and the number of officers that we have had to remove from their positions to put other officers in. And I go back to my statement, because I live in zip code 40211, am I a likely target? And I will go back to 1975 when I was in a school and I saw my first student arrested and handcuffed and stood outside the office. It's not right, but there's a security issue, there's a school issue, so I'm not comfortable with voting no at this particular moment, but I think this board needs additional information about that.
I think providing you with the data on amount per school and so you have that data, I think is very important on an ongoing basis. So we will do that and provide you information on training too.
Member Horn?
I just guess a point of order here. Also, you know, this is a consent agenda item that the chair and the vice chair had the opportunity to pull it out or to clarify it. I guess I'm just kind of not being an educator, being, you know, I'm a real estate attorney, and so I remember the data too. I do. And I've sat here and listened to, you know, both of you talk about the research, and then the coherence with the climate and culture that we're creating here. That's on one side, but then on the other side, I don't know what, Mr. Brady, this is your district, correct? Is this Carruthers and J-Town? Michelle Dillard, I think this is your district, and the principal of Carruthers and also of the high school, the SBDM that voted for the position and approved it. So to take this from a consent agenda item all the way out to saying no, I agree with Ms. Porter, it's a tough vote for me, because I've got some people that I really have, you know, gained respect for to try to understand these issues, but I don't have enough time to understand it, like right now, pulling it out of a consent agenda item. So I would ask in the future as a board if we can try not to bury things in consent agenda items that are really important to you. Please pull it out, make sure that we know about it, help educate the rest of us on your passion for this item, because if you're pulling it out, you are passionate, and I'm with you on that passion, but I need to be able to understand it enough. So I would hope that you know, if I vote how I'm going to vote, which, you know, you know, if we're going to vote today, I think we have to vote today. Dr. Polio, I mean, is this something that needs to happen today? I mean, is this something that can be postponed? I mean, I don't know the timing on this, you know.
Well, the SROs would go to work next Wednesday.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we pull it, then they wouldn't be available to work until it was approved.
Right. And so probably just to, you know, I'm probably gonna have to, you know, vote, you know, to basically call the question. Chris, I know you may want an opportunity to speak. This is your district, but I would like to go ahead and call the question to, you know, if you want to talk first, but that'll be standing on the table to call the question so we can vote.
Well, we already have a motion on the floor, so that's what we're actually discussing right now is the motion. The motion on the floor right now is to vote on this item minus items 2 and 3, 3 and 4, excuse me. 3 and 4, because there's a number of different contracts that are a part of this. So before we move on to anything else, I do want to speak to this item. A couple things. First of all, regarding policy, it is board policy that this board, with the exception of Member Geese and Member Kolb, has voted on to allow board members to be able to pull down items. Generally, those items are to be given to, or at least made aware of the chair prior to the meeting. This item was earlier today. So so board policy was followed regarding the agenda. So I understand. So Member Horn, I am actually speaking right now, so in the process right now, I'm trying to explain what policy is. So policy is, you voted on this policy as well. I'm aware of it. I hope you are aware of it. So that should explain why and how the mechanism for these items would be brought down. In fact, we also have a policy where board members can bring this policy down during a meeting without any notification to the board chair as well. So those issues aside, as a representative for District 7, in which two of these Carruthers and J-Town are a part of my district, I will also draw your attention to the fact that I also have another high school in my district, which is Fern Creek High School. That is the only school that unfortunately has experienced a shooting in the school. I will tell you, the deputy SRO that was there that day was very effective and responded very quickly to that particular item. Now, I do agree that this is something we should take a look at. We have had incidents in the past. We are not immune to those incidents like any other district, and we should take a look at that. And unfortunately, principals in this district don't always get to pick the SRO that's actually attending or providing services for that day. Sometimes you have SROs that also obviously need sick time or vacation time, or something comes up, and you'll have someone filling in that doesn't necessarily understand the dynamic or special needs of some kids and how they act, and you know, what type of leeway to give. So I understand that aspect of it, but we can say the same of substitute teachers too. So, you know, there's an element. Now, like Ms. Duncan had mentioned, our staff are not trained to deal with some of the issues that come up in schools. I recognize that. I think that, you know, luckily we haven't had any situation that we've seen in other school districts across the nation where a child in elementary school is handcuffed or anything along those lines. I think that is, I think that we're very fortunate that that hasn't happened, and I think that's a testament to not only our law enforcement here locally, but also our district staff. So I want to give them credit for that. But I will also remind this board that I can tell you from my own personal experience of being there that day and helping those kids and having kids that are coming out of that school who are having, you know, assault rifles by law enforcement pointing at them because law enforcement doesn't know if they are the active shooter or not. That is something that, you know, is pretty traumatic, but it's also something there that also probably can prevent further occurrences from happening. So I am strongly supportive of having SROs in our schools. I do know that the principal at Carruthers and the principal at J-Town, those officers are a part of their school. J-Town Police Department is a great community partner to work with, from the chief on down, from the mayor on down. And I would strongly recommend that we approve this measure, with the understanding, of course, that the superintendent should come back and give us a study as to any of the incidences or issues that might occur district-wide. So one more question, and then as Ms. Horn, or two more issues, and then as Ms. Horn had mentioned, we would like to vote on this. So Vice Chair Wilner.
I just want to say I really appreciate the conversation. I think that this has been a contentious issue in the past, and I appreciate the opportunity to come to the table and for everyone to be really civil and have a lot of strong feelings about this issue. I appreciate Dr. Polio stepping into the conversation with his principal background and experience. Given the way the conversation has gone, I am not going to vote to take away resources that schools are counting on for the start of school on next week. So I just wanted to explain my vote on that, but I do appreciate and understand that we will have an opportunity to review data, review training, and I think that's really important. So thank you very much.
Member Cole.
And I'll pull my motion from the floor, and in doing so, I just want to point out that SROs were put in schools initially, not in Jefferson County, but across the nation as as Member Geese said, as a knee-jerk reaction to some very high-profile, horrific incidents that happened nationally, with no understanding of the effect that they would have, of how they would operate. It was just, let's just put cops in schools. That was just about the extent of the thought process that went into putting SROs in schools, at least on a national, in a national sense. I'm not saying, I don't know about JCPS itself. And we know that there are much more effective ways to keep schools safe that don't lead to disproportionate discipline numbers that we see in JCPS, which are just inexcusable. I mean, our disproportionality in discipline is it's just it's a scandal, frankly, and this is a contributing factor to it. All not speaking about personal knowledge of JCPS incidents, but all the national research tells us. And then, I'm not going to discuss some of the horrific cases that we've had in JCPS with SROs and students, but they're out there. They've happened. And when that happens, I'm just not going to vote to spend tax dollars on doing something that has had very negative effects on some kids in the past, and we don't really understand what effects they have. I completely agree with everything everybody said about they can be effective, but as I think Member Wilner said, there's not a systematic process in place throughout the district. So a great principal like Dr. Polio, yeah, your SRO is going to be awesome because you're an awesome principal and you're going to make sure they do a good job, or they're not going to be in your school. Unfortunately, we don't quite have 155 Dr. Polios out there. That's, I'll pull my motion, but I just wanted to explain a little bit more why I pulled it initially.
Okay. So without further discussion, and since the motion has been pulled, is there a vote to approve the consent agenda item I in its totality? There we go. Motion made by Member Horn. Is there a second? Second made by Member Geese. All those in favor? Motion passes. Or I'm sorry, all opposed? 1. Motion passes 6-1. All right, on to our next item. This is consent item L.2. L.2 is the acceptance of funding from the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority for the dual credit scholarship program. Member Geese, I believe you brought this issue down. Would you like to discuss?
Yes, I just had a few quick questions. When I'm looking here at the dual credit dollars, I'm sure that many of you, in going through this document and preparing for our meeting today, were a bit shocked at the disparity in dollars between some of our schools. I think at the top here, it looks like with $43,000, we have Eastern High School, and at the bottom we have Jefferson County High School in Shawnee, the Academy at Shawnee, with only $936. So I suppose my question is, how do we account for the disparity in dollars, and how can we ensure that students in schools like Shawnee and Jefferson County High are exposed to the dual credit program properly?
So there's really two types of dual credits right now that you will see in high schools. The first being attached with a career and technical education program. So that is very much dependent upon the programs within the school that they would align with a local college or university to get them dual credit. So that's the CTE part of it, that is really based upon the school itself and what programs they have. The second is usually classes like English 101, freshman math class at a college or university. University of Louisville would be an example that offers a dual credit, where many times kids have to have a 20 on the ACT in order to qualify for dual credit. There are some other examples out there, but that is the example. So you will see, unfortunately, right now, a disparity in our schools like Eastern. Now it's a bigger school, much bigger, so 4 times the number of students that a Shawnee would have. So, but it doesn't account for the disparity there. So the problem, the biggest problem I think we have is this systematic approach where each school is essentially on their own to develop a dual credit program within the school, as opposed to having a district-wide group or people that go out and make sure every single school has dual credit offerings in their school, which is where we're going to go as we move forward. So right now, it's pretty much on the principal, the leadership team of a school to make sure that they align, and some with CTE programs, but we've got to increase that at every school and make sure that there are equitable opportunities in every single school.
Sure. And again, not to put you on the spot, just food for thought. Is there anything you think we as a board or as a central office could be doing to help get more robust programs in these particular schools?
Support talent, continue to support our talent academies, because our talent academies will bring dual credit into our schools. So we funded it last year, continue funding, and we need to get all of our high schools into talent academies, because when we have these viable programs, talent academies, that one of the tenets is that their senior year they will have dual credit programs in their school that are aligned with the pathway that they're on. So I'm a huge believer in CTE programs and having them aligned on a pathway, and every single kid wall to wall in a school being on that pathway. And so at J-Town when I was there, it might have been welding. And so a kid could take 3 years on the pathway, and then their 4th year, they would take a dual credit class with JCTC. And so we've got to continue to support that, and then we've got to make sure as a cabinet that all these schools are implementing it wall to wall.
Member Horn?
We talked a little bit in the work session about the idea that the outcome we want to see is our students in JCPS being successful in college and also in career and also in getting certificates and you know, whatever variety college takes. And I don't know if you can talk a little bit about it. I mean, what I know to be true, being the daughter of an educational psychologist, a career counselor, you know, that's what my dad did. But he always said that the research showed that every student before graduation should have access to and success in a college level course, whether you're talking about earning dual credit toward a career certificate or college credit. Can you talk a little bit about that, whether you believe that to be true and what we can do as a board?
Well, I believe that anytime a student graduates with what I call a diploma plus, meaning they walk across the stage with a diploma plus dual credit college hours, a certification, apprentice hours, job shadowing, anything that you add to that is going to increase the likelihood that they will be successful. So dual credit is one huge component of that. That I think we need to increase, and especially with at-risk students, that we give them the opportunity to get these dual credits, because and unfortunately in AP right now and nationwide, the pass rate in AP is low. But when there's dual credit and you have the support in dual credit, a student can walk out of high school, especially if they're in a talent academy school on a pathway, with 6 or 9 credit hours of dual credit. The likelihood of them going to college and being successful is much higher. Plus, it is a part of our new accountability system coming out. The regs haven't been finished on that, but dual credit will be a sign of a student being transition ready. So it's going to be very important for us that we get all of these schools, especially our talent academies, to greatly increase those opportunities for kids.
I would be interested in just seeing the barriers. What barriers are there? Just learning more about it to understand the barriers to this, so that we can try to overcome them.
Yeah, well, I mean, the funding is no longer a problem with our state plan that they will fund a certain amount of dual credit hours. Qualified faculty members that qualify at the institution is a big problem, and then meeting an ACT entrance requirement can be a problem. And so those are things. Now, some schools require an application fee and an admittance fee, but we should be able to get beyond that, and we can. But I mean, those are some of the challenges that go along with it.
Member Porter?
I'm a firm believer in career and tech ed myself. You know that, others know that. And I think one of the things that the board as a governance body needs to be aware of are the opportunities that are in their schools for our students. and for these career and tech programs, what it looks like, how they can earn the dual credit, in what classes, what does the teacher need, what kind of certifications, what kind of certificates can the students receive, but also as we talk about the ACT test itself, how many advanced program classes do we have in the high schools? How many programs do we have that will help ACT prep programs? Because a lot of times, some of our schools have been slow to come along with advanced program classes. That doesn't mean that they don't need to be there. It means that we as a governance body need to make sure that we're monitoring that information, and that someone that we are aware that we're putting dollars where the dollars should be. So I think it's important that we know the potentials that are available in each school. If we have schools with one advanced program class, then that's a question mark for me. And I would be wanting to know, what are we going to do about that? And as it pertains to certifications, what certifications are available in career and tech ed? I know there are some, and that continues to grow. And what we need to do for our career and tech teachers to make sure that they're getting everything that they can get in order to award that dual credit opportunity for our students.
So that is, when we talk about AP, there is a financial aspect to that has to be considered by the board. And so as a principal, sometimes, especially in a high-need school, putting in process the things that get students to the point where they take AP classes, and pushing and encouraging families to do that is an important part of it. But many times our principals might have a class offering AP biology, for instance, or AP physics, AP calculus, that are very challenging, that might have a smaller number of students that requested that class. And so it becomes a financial decision that a principal has to make. If I only have 12 kids in this class and offer it, or 10 kids, then those other 20 kids are going to be spread somewhere else, and it increases the cost. So I think we have to consider systemically how we would support that if we encourage it, and I think we all do, that in high-need schools that we offer AP dual credit, that we allow principals to have that financial ability to make those decisions where it's not going to cost them in other places, and make a hard decision about, do I offer an AP class where there might only be 8 to 10 students in it.
Vice Chair Wellner.
I already made this comment to Dr. Polio, but I'll say it publicly. As we think about the dual credit opportunities, I would just ask that we not forget our alternative schools, our TAP school, our Liberty, our Phoenix, and the disciplinary schools for students who are there for an extended period, that they also have those opportunities as a way to spark student engagement, and is also a way to forge a pathway into the future for them.
Without question. Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay. Is there a motion to approve consent item L.2? Motion made by Member Geese. Is there a second? Second made by Member Horn. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item from the consent calendar pulled down is item Q. Ms. Duncan, I believe you pulled down this item. Do you wish to discuss?
I just had a quick question on this one, and probably Cordelia's best one to answer it. I know when the state changed the birth date to August 1st, we were shown the impact that was going to have on reducing necessary staff for that year, for this coming year. And now we have 154 who have been approved to come back in. How does that approach what we looked like we were reducing? Are we getting that money back, or is it still short?
Dina, do you want to come up too? I'm going to make them get their exercise now.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come up and down.
You need roller chairs to roll over.
With the 2-month change from October to August, we were projecting about 1,200 fewer kindergarten students overall. So now we've accepted 154 for early admittance. So, and
So
so
it's
we're
still-
still close to about 1,000 students
So
down.
it's still a big reduction.
Yes.
All right.
When the funding, as far as our ADA, that is based on the previous year. So it's a lag in funding.
Oh, okay, so it's still funded, but next year, the following year, it will show up.
Right, 18,
Okay.
19.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve consent item Q? Motion made by member Duncan, second made by member Geese. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. All right. The next item is a couple items I'm going to pull down, and I'm going to reverse these as far as the order they appear on our consent calendar. And this is regarding public comment as well as possibly the agenda of our agenda or our calendar here, or not calendar, but our agenda here. Item S deals with revisions to board policy regarding public participation in open meetings. And at our last meeting, I had spoken to our, this is a second reading for both of these items, by the way, but at our last meeting, we had the first reading, and I had mentioned during that time that I'd like for us to consider putting some type of limitations on the number of speakers to address the board. And I told everyone that I'd be sending out some recommendations. I've done that. And there are actually two particular items that I had suggested, options rather. Option one was basically blocking this to a set number of speakers for consent agenda items and non-consent agenda items, and that was it. And then option two was limiting that to 5 speakers for consent agenda items, 5 speakers for non-consent agenda items that were to be discussed or have a placement before or right after the superintendent's comments, and then have the rest of our agenda, and then anybody else who exceeded that number would have the opportunity to speak at the end of our agenda for that evening. Now, I'm not at this point want to take a motion here, but I do want to have a discussion on this. The first seat, A, if there's any interest in moving forward with this, or B, if there's any interest in moving this back to committee for further consideration for this, and also to have board member input whether or not there is a desire to have some type of limitation so we know what to expect when we're coming into our board meetings and having some type of defined limit. The limitations that I suggested are hardly ever exceeded. I am talking about something that would be outside of the norm. So I'm not trying to limit the 90 or 95% of the time that we have our meetings, but there are times when we have an excessive amount of speakers, and I do feel that, one, we don't always know how to, I guess, manage our time because we don't know how long that's going to take, and we don't know that until we get to any board meeting, really. But also, I just want to make sure we have adequate time to get to the people's business during the time frame that we have allotted to us, and just want to make sure we get that out of the way. So open it up for any discussion. Member Duncan.
Well, let me say, I think the committee discussed this, and I think there was pretty much support for this position that we took, which was all the speakers after the superintendent's report. And but the board can change that if the board wants to do that. But I just want to let you know, I mean, for me, I'm very much in favor of hearing public input, and even if it takes a long time, that's what I'm here for, is to listen to the public, and we only have every 2 weeks that we have the opportunity to do that. So the placement of speakers, like early or late, I think eventually these board meetings may be done another way, and so I think that as long as everybody gets to speak and that position is heard, I'm willing to stay here, and I have no problem with that. But
I also understand that this board can change whatever the committee thought was a good recommendation or position on this.
Member Geese.
I agree with Member Duncan. In the few times over the last 6 months since I've taken the oath and served on the board, when we've had a controversial issue with a number of speakers, I've oftentimes found that to be more cathartic. I think it provides us with a good view for the community, and I think it also demonstrates our support of the community in their right to come and address us publicly. I think that when we give people that opportunity, even though it does take us a long time to get through that, I think that the board is accustomed to serving long hours at night. I think that we've gotten to a point here now to where our meetings are more efficient, to where if we did have 20 speakers on a highly controversial issue, we may not get out as late as we're thinking we'll get out based upon our most recent model and exercise in board efficiency. So just my point of view in closing is I believe it to be a cathartic exercise, and I see no real problem with that.
Further discussion? Member Porter?
I think to say to some you can speak and to some you cannot is not acceptable. We are an organization for public education. It's our responsibility to listen. We can determine, I agree with Board Member Duncan and Geese, as to when we're going to listen. It's kind of ironic because in the course of the year we've had multiple speakers multiple times, more than 5, more than 6, and we have typically not gone too long, except a couple of times we actually went off the air before we got to action items. But I want to speak to the one that's most near and dear to me, which would be June the 27th of this year, when we had 24 speakers that came here to talk to us about the males of color. And everyone deserved to be heard. I will never say to my public, to my constituents, or anybody that lives in Jefferson County that you cannot be heard for those 3 minutes. We have some parameters about what people can say, but people deserve to be heard. And so I have to talk about that night for that particular issue. The meeting before that, we had 3 people that spoke about the males of color. So I want to specifically talk, you're like, why are you going on about that one? Because I want to, and because it was June the 27th, and it was the closest one to when we've had multiple speakers. I don't feel comfortable telling anybody that you cannot, or whoever gets to sign up first. Well, who knows that? Everybody doesn't know that. Some people walk in the door to sign up. We're here to serve. So I'm very uncomfortable with limiting the number of speakers. If we have an issue, and I talked to Dr. Polio about this, taxes are an issue. And I learned the hard way one night when we talked from before 7 o'clock until almost an hour, almost to 8 o'clock. So after that, we determined we would not handle it that way. We would have a specific time to hear people talk to us about the taxes. So I'm very uncomfortable with it. I think that we deserve to listen. That's part of our responsibility. We as a board can determine when we're going to listen. We agreed in the policy committee that we would have speakers after the superintendent's message, because for a minute there we were having speakers talk before the superintendent talked. So we looked at that, so we changed that. So this board should have the right to determine when the speakers, but I'm not comfortable saying no to anybody that wants to come in here and talk to us about something that is going on in the Jefferson County Public School System. It creates a system of have and have-nots, or you get to and you do not get to, and I do not support that.
Vice Chair Wellner?
I absolutely agree that anybody who comes before this board to speak deserves to be heard. They wouldn't have come and signed up and written out their comments and all that they do if they didn't have something important to say, and we need to listen to that. A couple of additional thoughts. One, I would love for, and I've brought this up before, love for us to explore the opportunity for more listening opportunities, maybe at town hall once or twice or 3 times a year, where the various departments are set up. People can ask their questions. They can come speak to the board. And then if there's a question about bus transportation or a student assignment or whatever it is, those folks are in the room and could go to them. And so to have those kind of additional listening opportunities, I think would be helpful for people. Sometimes really what people come to the board, it's something that could be resolved with a phone call, but they don't know that. And so they come to the board thinking that this is the only way that their problem can be addressed. So I would love for us to create additional listening opportunities that would be, you know, maybe more directly responsive to our constituents. So I'm in favor of that. I would never want to say we're going to put a cap on the number of speakers who show up for any given topic, whatever it is. However, I know that sometimes, and the one meeting that I ran, Chris was out of town, and I ran the meeting, and we had 22 or 24 speakers. We did not get to the first item of business until after 10 p.m. I don't do my best thinking after 10 p.m., especially after listening to some really emotional conversation from the public. So I wonder, just in the interest of being able to effectively do the people's business and do what we're called upon to do as a board, and this, I'm just tossing this out. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not advocating for this position necessarily, but I wonder if the policy committee might take up this conversation again. You know, that we have 10 speakers immediately after the superintendent's report, and then if there are additional speakers, they can stay and speak at the end, just so that we're not doing hard work and making tough decisions when we are not in our prime. Just a thought.
Any further discussion? Member Horn?
I found in my district, I kind of took Dr. Wilner's suggestion. She had advocated for more listing opportunities. And so I'm again doing like the Middletown Fun Festival in September, which I hope Dr. Polio will be at the tent with me. We'll have a tent this time and a table and chairs. And so it was a huge opportunity. We will not be lugging it ourselves either. It will be awesome. And, but it was an awesome time. To a huge number of people, and not a lot from your district really, Chris, coming and talking to the superintendent, talking to student assignment, and we have a couple people from different areas of JCPS. So those are the like real opportunities to get with the public and come to them. In a sense, not in a school, but come to them. I also tried something else, kind of threw it against the wall, and I did a something at one of the schools, and I had all the departments come, and that was, you know, like really fun too. Nobody really showed up. A lot of people spent a lot of time, and I got to do a poem, and it was really neat. But I don't know how effective, but going to the people and doing the fairs and stuff like that, I'm really for that. But on this issue, I think my feeling would be, I think there's some merit on both sides. I haven't really put some thought to it, but I'd like to send it to policy committee. And that's what this, in a sense, like that's where it can lie. It can stay there, it can come out, it can go back, and that's what that's for. So I think that's a great forum for it. And I'd like to hear more about it, but maybe in the policy committee, not today.
Member Cole?
I just want to hear Member Horn's poem.
I will be doing a poem in September at the board meeting that's hosted at Norton Commons Elementary.
Okay. That was unexpected. So I want to circle back on this, and especially a couple concerns that were raised. And that's as far as limiting speakers, that's the reason I offered 2 different options as far as how we can proceed regarding this. I share Vice Chair Wilner's concern about us being front-loading a lot of speakers and not getting to some of the main points of having a general meeting. And just, I'm not trying to be confrontational or anything, just letting everyone know that having public speakers is actually a board policy. It is not something that's required by state law. So this is something that we want as a board, and I firmly believe that public speaking or having the ability to give out time for public speakers is critically important to us as a board to be able to get that feedback. But it's not the only way to communicate with us, especially not anymore. Each of us have email addresses. We have most of us have Twitter accounts. Some of us have Facebook pages. There's a number of different ways to communicate your message to us. And regarding like the situation of limiting speakers, understand that if you're wanting to speak to state government, there's limitations on time. If you're talking to a committee at state government level, they'll time block it. If you're talking to Metro Council, they have a limitation of speakers. In fact, they have a very more restrictive limitation of speakers than what I'm proposing. The fact that I think if you speak to Metro Council, you're not able to speak to them again until for like another 3 to 6 months or something. That is not a limitation or logistical issue that I want our secretary to have to deal with. And it also, with Metro Council, they also ask you to put in pros, those who are for it and those who are against it. I think in some ways that would even out some of the message that we get. And also I have found that after the third or fourth or fifth speaker that's taking up the same position, that I'm not really getting a different point of view. After 3 or 4 or 5 people, I've kind of got the idea of where the majority of folks lie on this issue. So that is some of the concerns I had, but also, and I'm fine with pushing this back to committee, but I also want to be very clear that committee is where items are discussed and a recommendation is made. It is not where items go to die. Unlike state government, when we have an item that goes to committee, it should come back to the board for consideration. Committee may not share this majority view of what the board is. They can certainly give a recommendation, and we should certainly give credence to that recommendation, but it is not something that the decision lies with the board and not with a committee. So I just want to be very clear on that type of process, because the idea behind with the committee process is that these items are hammered out, not in a general meeting. So what I'll do is we'll just put this up for just a straight approval. And I pulled item R in the event that there would be some concern about item S. There doesn't appear to be any, but I would like this to be reconsidered by committee and at least come back to us at some point, and we can have a more robust discussion about that. So one other comment before we move on. Member Porter.
When we talked about this before, I remember getting tweets, emails, and not face-to-faces that said clearly to me that you are not Metro Council. You are the Jefferson County Board of Education. And I mean, I just have to say that people have communicated that to us. Every governmental agency has their process in place. This is the process that we have used. We can change that if we like, but this is not Metro Council and it's not state government. And I'm saying that because as you talk about there are other ways to communicate to us, I got those communications other ways, you know, telling us exactly what we were. So I just want to be clear on that before y'all start tweeting and emailing. I'm very clear on where we are. This is the Jefferson County Public Schools. Thank you.
Member Geese.
I just have a quick clarifying question. So you said that you had pulled both items R and S, so we'll be voting on each of those separately, is that correct?
Since they are pulled separately, we'll just vote on them separately.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, since I brought up item S first, is there a vote to approve consent item S as is? Motion made by Member Geese, second made by Vice Chair Wilner. All those in favor? Motion passes. Is there a vote to approve consent item R? Motion made by Member Geese, second by Member Kolb. All those in favor? Item passes. All right, we are past our consent agenda. Now we're on to our next item, which will be the board planning calendar. Are there any concerns or comments to be made regarding the board planning calendar? All right. Hearing no other concerns or discussion regarding the board planning calendar, is there a motion to approve the board planning calendar? Motion made by Member Duncan, second made by Member Kolb. All those in favor? Motion passes. All right, our next item will be board reports. Are there any reports that board members would like to give? Member Geese, then Member Horn, and then Member Duncan.
Just like to say that over the last week, I had the great opportunity to attend and give a few introductory remarks to the Priority Teacher Institute that was held on the Stewart campus in my district, District 4. I have to say that it must have been very similar to the administrators kickoff that my colleagues attended, because the amount of energy, positive energy, pulsating through Stewart that day was absolutely incredible. I have to thank Dr. Marco Munoz and his team for putting that together. It's really hard to capture in words the amount of dedication and spirit that was evident in that building that day. When we continue to talk about improving culture and climate, I can see it, I can feel it, and I love it. So I hope that I can continue to see and feel that improvement in culture and climate, not only in our priority schools, but in all of our schools. On that note, I just wish a very good first day of school to all of our teachers, support staff, and administrators. Your first day of school is also my first day of school in Oldham County. So I've been putting my classroom together this week and getting ready just like the rest of our teachers here. So thank you all.
Member Horn?
I do have, my reports aren't there, so I have reports. I guess they didn't, I don't know, from my committee. So I don't know what the process is, because they should have been up there.
If my understanding is that your committee might be listed as a separate meeting within our agenda, so it may not be within the agenda here, but actually might have its own line item as if it was its own individual meeting.
Okay, I just need to have, I'm going to do a little procedural here, because I need to make sure that you all get my board reports. We talked in our our retreat that what you all would like to see are like the, basically your minutes, which would show what we're doing, the information. So I'll try to get all the handouts, like whatever handouts we have provided, and then if there are any recommendations. So those are the three things that, like, in the future, be looking for from finance, and I'm sorry those aren't downloaded. I do need to report out that I'm going to be attending the retreat for the academies of Louisville, which is the career academies, and that's coming up, and I'm really excited about that. So I'll be able to report back on that. It's either a day or two, I'm not sure which, so it's one day now. And it is a commitment that I'm really, really happy to serve in that way. And also, there's a steering committee that I joined. There had been a master plan for arts in our community, and I'm serving on, now that this is the implementation phase, and it's the education committee. So it's a great group. We had our first meeting this past week at the Fund for the Arts. They're kind of hosting it, and at their office, and it was a wonderful opportunity to be with some really incredible people and talk about education. And there were some priorities that that are coming together through the steering committee, and I don't know if Diane is on that bigger group that is going to look at the priorities, but I know that Ms. Porter is involved in it also in some way. So I'm really excited about what I read, and we just basically passed all the priorities right back up for the decision. There was, like, we couldn't even decide. They were all so good. But the main one was to provide educators, arts educators, that came out of the citywide plan with 8,000, people giving feedback from all over the county, that they really want to see arts educators in our public schools, arts and music educators. So that was really, I was very aligned with it too. So I'm very excited about those two things I'm doing as like extracurricular board work.
All right, thank you, Member Horn. Just a clarification, I was able to look and locate your Finance Advisory Committee meetings. All the materials are actually been posted, including the one on August 10th. So if you go out to the portal and like you would normally click.
I need to make sure that they become part of the minutes of this meeting today, and I would like them posted because that is my committee report. So
Okay.
It has to be posted as my board report. It's going to be my committee report until there's an agenda section I'm not just going to have it be non-existent and not a part of our meetings. It needs to be posted, and I thought it was. It's been posted every single meeting.
Right. We'll have I think we'll need to have a further process discussion offline regarding that, because technically it's not part of the general meeting. So we'll have to see if we can work a way to find that, maybe a link to that. Member Duncan, you had a report?
Yes, the policy committee met August 1st to consider recommendations and changes in policies that were reflective of changes in state and federal law. We have about 53 policies that we'll be looking at. We did not get that far. We went partway through that, but we discussed policies concerning administration, academic services, athletics, and data management, and there is no recommendation at this point.
Okay. Further reports? Member Kolb?
I'm really grateful to Dr. Polio for, well, for a lot of things, but one of them is the quote from the video you reference, time and time again. My favorite part of it is that I'm really, really good at my job, and I think, it's easy these days to attack public education. I just hope everybody that works in our schools really owns the fact that they are really, really good at their jobs, and it's a really, really important job. So as we kick off a school year, is anybody else excited when you get like the Staples flyers in the mail and it's got the school supplies for 10 cents and stuff? Yeah, so, what's that? No, God, no singing. And I just want to say an early congratulations to all the parents, because your kids are almost back in school and they survived and you survived.
Any other reports? Vice Chair Wallner.
I'll just echo the enthusiasm and positive feelings that others have talked about, and a shift in the climate and culture already that's palpable, I think, and certainly felt it. Can you feel something loud and clear? I felt it loud and clear at the administrator kickoff, at the new teacher induction. It was the first time I had been to that event, and it's just amazing that there are hundreds of brand new JCPS teachers and really, excited about their starting their careers with us. So it's very exciting, and again, that positive energy. Also at the Ed Camp. Had an opportunity to visit there, and amazing things happening there. Teacher leaders, teachers teaching other teachers. So that was fantastic. And then I had a quick jaunt to Austin, Texas last week to meet with a group called Local Progress. It was a school board convening. And one of the school board members I met there was a school board member from Buffalo, New York. So I had the opportunity to chat with her quite a bit about Say Yes to Education in Buffalo. And when I first asked her about it, she kind of lit up and went immediately into talking about how Say Yes to Education in Buffalo has benefited her own children and her own family, and the experiences and the opportunities they've had. So that was really interesting. And of course, the Weiss Institute is a little different from Say Yes to Education, but very much an offshoot of that program. And so she was just talking in some very specific anecdotal ways about how that program and that cross-sector collaboration has really transformed their school district. So just wanted to share that insight from Buffalo.
Good preview for the 22nd.
Member Porter.
I would like to spend a few minutes talking about community engagement and the organizations in this city that come together to help us get our students ready for school. In the last probably 7 days, I had an opportunity to be at Cochran Elementary for Neighborhood Place, and we fed, this district fed 600 lunches, and they ran out of backpacks getting young people ready for school. When I pulled up 15 minutes early, which doesn't happen often, but people were literally lined up all the way down the street waiting to get into the school. So because of organizations like Neighborhood Place, we are trying to supply the needs of our students, and I had an opportunity to be at the Academy at Shawnee working with the students there and the ESL population, and at the Southwood Community Center, the Neighborhood Place was there again. And also there was a math expo that was being led by Ebony Cochran, who has worked as a volunteer. It started as a small math opportunity for students, and now it consumed the entire gym at the Southwick Community Center, and everything is operated with volunteers, with students, and they just go to different tables and they learn different math opportunities, as well as there was a gentleman there with chess. But I want to spend the bulk of my time, and I don't usually do pictures, but since some of us are visual learners, I want to talk about Maupin Elementary, because I am very excited of the work of the Metro United Way. On Saturday, July the 29th, Metro United Way's Young Adult Engagement Group, which is called LINK, which stands for Lead Impact Network Change, partnered with Maupin Elementary to host a special Making Moves at Maupin volunteer event. LINK supports Metro United Way in the fight for education, financial stability, and health of every person in each of the 7 counties they serve by offering a social and volunteer network for young adults. With the generous support of the event sponsor Delta Dental, LINK chose to focus on ensuring that every child at Maupin would feel the love of our community on the first day, 2017-18 school year. More than 70 volunteers joined Making Moves at Maupin and contributed to 4 volunteer projects during the event. Inside the building, on that picture you will see Metro Councilwoman Jessica, and that's Mary Grissom from Metro United Way. And in the hallway they are, you can go to the next slide, Angie. In the hallway, maybe back to the other slide, I'm sorry. In the hallway you will see them working on bulletin boards, but inside the building the volunteers painted each of Maupin's more than 40 bulletin boards in a jewel tone pattern that complements the lockers lining each hallway. They also packaged 100 backpacks full of school supplies and wrote first day of school encouragement notes for every child, every teacher, and every staff member at Maupin. Outside, the volunteers contributed to Maupin's need for a playground by building a natural playground style music station. That's what you see before you now, complete with drums, washboard, and the xylophone pipes. Finally, to celebrate one of the many points of Parkland Pride, volunteers installed a chain link fence mural. The fence was already there, and there are these little things that you push into the slots in the fence, honoring the champ himself. What better way than in the Parkland neighborhood when the Muhammad Ali came from 32nd and Grand Avenue to honor Muhammad Ali. The slogan for the school this year is Endeavor. So the mural includes the likeness of Muhammad Ali, his famous red bike, and the school's theme for the year, Endeavor, with the lettering that says Endeavor to be the greatest. And I would like to thank Joe Leffert, Principal Holmes. It was a fabulous morning at Maupin Elementary School. Saturday, I had an opportunity to have a brief conversation with CEO Teresa Reno Weber from the Metro United Way, and I thanked her for what they had done at Maupin Elementary. I'm just so excited. If you're in my district, please drive by. The fence literally, it twinkles when the sun is out for a reason, because it's about Maupin. So my tagline that morning when I said my 10 words to folks after I said thank you, I ended with Maupin matters. All of our schools matter. All of our kids matter. All of our staff matters. So I just want to say thank you over and over again for folks stepping up for Maupin Elementary School. That completes my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The only thing I have to add to what my colleagues have talked about today is just good luck to all of our teachers, staff, bus drivers, transportation folks, everyone, communication staff, central office staff, everyone that's going to be pulling together a fantastic first day of school. I'm confident that with our new acting superintendent, and good luck to you too, sir, we will endeavor down to be the greatest, and we will have a great year. I am pretty confident of that, and I will also echo what Dr. Kolb had said in the fact that I have heard that I'm really, really good at my job comment multiple times since the administrators kickoff, including today during my son's orientation to middle school. So, and it's funny because it was said without any context, and I'm like, I get that. So I know where that came from. So, but also good luck to everyone and our parents and our students on a great new year. So, and with that, that will conclude our board reports. We've already moved up our agenda item regarding speakers. There is no executive session that is needed. So therefore, the only thing that is left at 9:11 is the motion to adjourn. A motion made by Member Kolb, second by Member Porter. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Everyone.
I know.